I am back. I am back. And oh boy, am I in a good mood. Like, okay. I know I've been putting this off for a long time because, everybody needs a break from Empress Theresa, but holy cow. Like, all right. So, chapter 10. Like, okay, I want to clarify. I am 10 chapters into this book out of 28. Now, that sounds like I got a long ways to go, but if I can't show you right now, but my bookmark is like almost halfway through this book right now. Like maybe like a bit more to a third or something, but I don't know. It doesn't matter because I checked. Like that means that if there's what like 18 chapters left and I'm already this far, that only means that there is a light at the end of this tunnel. The following chapters have to be pretty short. I checked. This one is like 10 pages long, and like so are like the next 3 are 10 pages long, and I am excited right now that I can. Oh boy, like it's I. It feels good to be back. I can finally crank things out. But anyway, previously on Empress Theresa, she went to Paris and complained about everything, and I was talking about how that's pretty rude, actually, of course, considering it's like, it's like, what a spoiled brat. It's like the end of the world is coming in less than 2 years or so. I forgot how many days. It was like 200 something. And she just decides to take a vacation, go somewhere, and just make fun of all of their artwork, culture, all that jazz. And I think she mentions something about going to Ireland. I don't know, and I personally don't care. I just want to get on to chapter 10 so that I can just breeze through this book. Let's go. Chapter 10. I returned to the torture chamber to play the coin and hanging ruler games with Hal. This was definitely the most boring and frustrating thing I had ever done. Oh yeah, that's right. She also did the training coin thing with Hal in the previous chapter, but whatever. It was like factory work, only especially irritating in that I was making no progress in a project of so much importance. Once more, I was reminded of how my ambitions had been thwarted by events. It was not how I planned to spend my life. After a morning of intense ennui, I walked to the bedroom to chill out. I stood in front of my life-size poster taped to the wall and stared at it. If I could have known what was ahead of me when I walked out of that elevator. And then, like, 8 ellipses or so. That's right, she has, like, a poster of herself, like, which is... I'm not even going to comment on that. I let myself collapse on the bed and stared at the ceiling for a moment. Then I closed my eyes. For a few minutes, I lay there quietly. I opened my eyes. There was a black thing, halfway between my bed and the poster on the wall. It was an upright, ill-shaped form, about my height and width. It slowly undulated. I never know this word whenever I read it, I'm sorry. It slowly undulated along its length, as if trying to assume a more definite shape. I got up and fearfully looked at it. Recent experience taught me anything could happen with Hal. He might harm me unintentionally. Looking at the form, I realized Hal was trying to duplicate my appearance. He was doing a poor job of it. There was a knob on top, which I assumed was... Next page. Supposed to be my head. Some protrusions on the sides might be my arms. The legs were wavy columns on the bottom. Hal might please an abstract painter, but not a surrealist. And the fridge starts running. There was no face. Hal wasn't that good an artist. Neither's Norman Bouton. My fear was diminishing. Hal had never harmed me. His reflexes weren't designed to harm the host creature. However, there was no telling the bizarre situations on the other worlds. Translated here, they might be dangerous. Suddenly, the black shape moved forward and disappeared into me. It happened too fast for me to react. Something was happening to my eyesight. The room blurred until I couldn't see it. Instead, I saw vague shapes. They changed in size and number. They were too indistinct to be recognizable. And then I noticed. They were black and white. They were in black and white. They looked like things I would see if I was in motion. I understood. Hal was showing me something. But what? The vague shapes abruptly changed to sharp images of a building viewed from above. It was the roof of the Parker mansion. Hal had been showing me the underground rock formations, but now had brought my view into the sky. The view continued to climb in the air. The Parker mansion became smaller, and I could see the surrounding features. The view continued climbing in the air, as if I were in a rocket, going up to orbit. There were now hundreds of buildings and other features in view, but getting too small to make out. I was, in a sense, far above the ground. The climbing continued. I made out the shape of England, then Europe, and finally the Western Hemisphere. I was looking at the Earth. Hal must have extended out an enormous distance. A new thought restored my fear. What if Hal did this forever? I'd be blind. This horrible possibility made me unconsciously put my hands to my closed eyes. My gosh, again I can't say it. My gosh, what will happen to me? I removed my hands and opened my eyes. I could see the room again. The black and white view of the Earth was gone. Of Earth was gone. I thought about that. Yeah, this was another reflex. It made sense that if Hal had done this for creatures on other planets, he wouldn't have made it permanent, or they'd be blind too, and starve to death for failing to find a meal. Then I remembered the fall from the fighter jet. The first thing I'd done on getting out of the cockpit was cover my face with my arms to protect my eyes from the fast wind. I'd just taken 2 more plane rides in the last 48 hours. Hal was being prompted to adapt a new reflex. Putting my hands to my face completed this adaptation. What would happen if I put my hands to my face again? I tried it. Upon opening my eyes, I saw the black and white view of the Earth again. Once more, I put my hands over my eyes. My normal vision of the bedroom returned. That made sense too. But what use was a view of the planet to a stupid creature on another world? Could the black and white view be modified? I imagined a 10-legged creature crawling around on another world. The only way it could get Hal to modify the view was by doing something in front of its legs, with its front legs. Alright, just a second, I need to let my dog in. He's been, Alright, and now I'm back. Anyway, modify the view. The only way I could modify the view was by doing something with its front legs. I put my hands to my eyes again, and the black and white view of the world returned. Now I held my hands in front of my face and moved them around. The black and white view moved back and forth. Moving my hands closer brought the world closer. I dropped my hands and raised them again to move them close to my face. The view took off where it had left off, bringing me closer to the Earth. I repeated this procedure several times and found myself coming down, so to speak, to the coast of France. But I started over the Parker mansion. Why the lateral movement? I raised my hands sideways, and the view moved around. By many manipulations over several minutes, I found myself looking at the roof of the Parker mansion again. It did not seem like an overview would be of much use to a creature on another world. He wouldn't recognize what he was looking at. I tried twisting my hands until the angle of the black and white view changed. By lots more manipulation, I got a view of the front of the house. An animal might take months to learn all this. I'd figured it out in a few minutes. What if I moved the view closer to the mansion? I did more hand manipulations, and the view seemed to penetrate the wall and show the interior. I could spy on anybody, anywhere. The usefulness of this thing was obvious. A hunting animal could more easily find food if it could see around trees and hills. It would be in Hal's basic repertoire of reflexes for helping out host creatures. Steve had to hear about this. I went looking for him. The formatting's kind of weird. I can't really show you right now, but, Hal is a lot more sophisticated than we thought. Okay, this is Steve's talking. Hal is a lot more sophisticated than we thought, said Steve after I explained everything that happened in the bedroom. You'd expect. I don't know who's ever talking. I hate the dialogue in this book. You'd expect that Hal was evolving for billions of years before Earth was formed. Think of how many kinds of eyes Earth's creatures have. Oh, that's Theresa talking. Great. Yeah, think of how many eyes Earth creatures had. This started when you dropped on the bed? Yeah. It's like when you dropped in the ocean. Let's see what we can do with it. We went to the torture chamber to get the simple equipment. I had been using and returned to the bedroom. I sat on the bed and threw a coin at the can on the floor with my eyes open. The coin went in the can because the orange dot in my eye field was on the can. Then I threw a coin with my eyes shut. The coin missed the can. Next, I threw a coin with my eyes open to give Hal the idea. Now, I dropped back on the bed and threw a coin with my eyes shut. It went in the can. A new reflex, I said. Try it in the hall without the bed. I moved the can to the hall and threw a coin at it with my eyes shut. The coin went in. Can you use that reflex to get Hal to do another one? I moved back in the bedroom and set up the table with the two glasses. I put a coin next to a glass and slid it towards the other glass, while looking at the same time, throwing a coin at the can with my eyes open. Then I repeated the procedure, except that I let go of the coin at the glass while I threw a coin with my eyes shut. One coin went in the can, and the other slid from one glass to the other. Hal moved it. Finally, I forgot about throwing a coin at the can and placed a coin next to the glass and let go. I slid the other glass. I looked at Steve triumphantly. I did it! Steve could not have been prouder if I had won the Miss Universe contest. Okay. I'm writing a letter to Blair. Again, I don't know who's saying that line. That's great. Peter Blair called an assembly of the House of Commons to give the announcement. I have received a letter from Mr. Steve Hartley containing important news. I will read it. Dear Mr. Blair, I don't want anybody to get excited. There's still a long way to go. Theresa has made a major breakthrough with Hal today. He's responding. She's getting him to do new reflexes that have nothing to do with another world. She is controlling Hal at a simple level. This is only the first step in a long journey. There are a lot of details to work out, but the journey has begun. I don't want to talk about what she's doing in detail because someday somebody might want to take control. But I'm confident that she will succeed in solving our problem. By the way, this proves her theory about Hal was right on. Respectfully yours, Steve Hartley. The members of the House stood up and cheered. Blair looked more relaxed than he'd been in a month. A lot had been said in the media about my mental state, upon which the world's fate depended. It appeared to be in good condition. The trip to France and Ireland was a good sign, indicating I was still interested in things outside myself. So wait, she did go to Ireland? They talked about it. I didn't think that she... Smile and nod, that's just another chapter I don't have to read. Blair had talked to Edmund Parker about how Steve was bearing up to the pressure. He was doing well, reported Parker. It was clear that Steve's loyal support gave me emotional stability. Thank God for Steve, Blair told Parker. The work of training Hal was now an exciting adventure, instead of a drudgery, and I would have worked on it 20 hours a day if Steve didn't drag me away for some R&R. I got Hal to perform a few more reflexes. Now there were new obstacles to overcome. One big one was that Hal couldn't read a clock. Time meant nothing to him. When I threw a baseball, the baseball's own speed through the air determined when and how fast he guided the ball to its target. Similarly for the other reflexes he'd done so far. But what if I were to get him to do something in another place, something I wasn't doing myself? How could I get him to do it at the right speed? Steve drew a diagram and asked Arthur to have the object on the paper made by government workers. A few days later, the object was delivered to the Parker place. It was a kind of clock, but instead of a fixed round face with moving hands, this clock had no moving hands, and 2-foot wide face spun around. A circle of 100 pieces of 1/8 inch thick wooden dowels, if I'm saying that right, were glued to the border of the face. Another piece of dowel was fixed on a mounting. When the pieces of dowel were on the face, past the fixed dowel, and were in alignment for an instant, it was an event which I could get Hal to recognize. An electric motor turned the clock face once a second next page, to divide a second into 100 intervals. If I wanted Hal to move some large object, I would get him to move it 100 times a second over a period of time. I would get him to move it each time there was a click on the clock, 100 times a second. This would continue until I told it to stop. Now I had to get Hal to respond to the thing. That would take some work. Two other problems were related: identifying an object and identifying its location. The object in mind would be some distance away from me, perhaps on the other side of the world. This was different from the reflexes I had gotten him to do up to now. Then the object and location was myself, or something, which I was in physical contact. It would be necessary to get Hal to fool around with things in other places. To do this, it would be necessary to set up a tag system, so I'd identify the object and get Hal to manipulate it when I wanted. Steve got to work gathering the equipment for a preliminary tag system. It would have to be simple. I might develop far more complicated tag systems later, but I had to begin somewhere. Steve and Arthur drove to a nearby hardware store to buy dowels, electric drills, drill bits, 4x4 foot sheet of plywood, glue, small nails, large amounts of the little metal numerals used on home street number signs, awfully specific, and a circular saw. Arthur could go back some other time to get more supplies if needed. Then they went to a department store to buy wooden chess sets. When Steve got back to the estate, he went to work on a few supplies he'd carry out of the store. He put wooden chess pieces in the vise and drilled holes in their bottoms. He drilled similar holes in the middle of the squares of the chessboard. He glued short pieces of dowel into the chess pieces. Now the chess pieces could be placed on the board securely. The tags would be numbers glued along one edge of the chessboard. Hal would have to be trained to feel three-dimensional numbers and associate them with an object somewhere. As for identifying the location of the objects associated with the tags, I would have to use triangulation. Another thing Hal couldn't do was count. I couldn't tell him to go 23 miles north and 14 miles east. I would have to get the government to drop markers at specific places around the world. Hal would be made to watch these markers. Knowing where these markers were, I could then use simplistic geometry to triangulate between these markers to specify an exact location. I could draw the geometric pattern needed on a piece of paper, and Hal would match these patterns to the makers around the world. These plans were all theories for the moment. Implementing them would be very difficult, but I had told the Prime Minister at our broadcast meeting that it would be. I hope I don't die of old age before this job is done, I told Steve. Well, if you died of... the world would end, apparently, before you died of old age, but, you know. Okay, we're back on this. What about the chipmunks? I soon gained enough of their trust to feed them from my hand. What I did was lay a small rug on the ground in case there were little chipmunk poos I couldn't see. Then I lay myself down on the rug with my forearms on the ground. This was a non-threatening position. The chipmunks came near out of curiosity, and I finger snapped some nuts or pieces of cheese at them. In time, I got them to eat out of my hand. The Parkers had never seen this done and thought it was charming. They took videos of me feeding the little guys by hand and put them on several social media websites, having the effect of ruling out copyrights. The videos were shown in every corner of the planet, especially on kids' programs, which showed them every day. Yes, it's just a little video of you feeding some chipmunks, but alright. Every day. I suppose people found the videos comforting. If I took care of little rodents, much more I would take care of people. It had been 7 weeks since I started working on the Hal problem. I had reached the point where it was necessary to more thoroughly address the twin problems of timing Hal's actions and identifying distance numbers and their locations. Steve and Arthur drove to number 10 Downing Street to show Peter Blair the simple rotating wheel he'd made to serve as Hal's clock. We need 4, again, I don't know who's talking. Okay, Steve, apparently. We need 4 larger versions of this thing, Steve explained to Blair. This one doesn't divide a second into enough parts. Hal's motions are too choppy. We need clocks to divide a second into the millisecond. Why 4? Asked the PM. We need at least one of them moving at all times. If all 4 stopped at once while Hal was doing something, the results are unpredictable. We don't want to find out what happens. Must they be in synchronization? In perfect synchronization. Okay, in perfect synchronization, Hal needs only one of them at a time, but there has to be at least one running at all times. I know this is a tough problem. Again, I don't know who's talking right now. I will have a large team work on it immediately. Blair's scientists and engineers threw together the 4 clocks in 2 weeks. Steve went to look at them and were satisfied. The problem of locating places anywhere in the world turned out to be simpler than Steve thought. At first he thought we'd have the Navy to dump markers all over the oceans to allow me to triangulate them. I tuned out I could just use my black and white vision and the tag system to fix Hal on immovable landmarks. The Golden Gate Bridge, Empire State Building, St. Peter's, the Taj Mahal, Mount Fuji, and anything else anywhere in the world, I would have wanted to do something. If we were making a lot of progress, soon the world would see results. By late July, farmers all over the world, I feel like there should have been a comma, by late July farmers have all over the world were saying their crops were dying for lack of water. Irrigation alone wouldn't save them. There had to be some rain. The media never stopped talking about it. The pressure took its toll on me. But at least I now had the tools I needed to get Hal doing something larger and more interesting. Alright, and the chapter ends just there. Only 23 minutes long. That is just beautiful. You know what? The Coca-Cola one, as funny as that kind of was, like from an ironic standpoint, this is probably the best chapter so far. It actually goes into her training and doing stuff with Hal, which is, like, we could have just skipped, like, 4 chapters and just gone to this, and, like, we probably would have missed anything. Like, I don't give a crap about the chipmunks. I don't know why they make such a big deal out of them, but I don't care right now because this chapter is short and I'm happy with that. I can probably crank out just reading a couple more chapters today after this. So, anyway, have a good one. I bid thee adieu. It feels good to be back, weirdly enough.